will bring rain from mid-afternoon as the southerly wind freshens. Top temperature 18, overnight minimum 15. Into Thursday, Jordan will be cloudy with occasional showers. At start, then a dry afternoon. Daylight maximums 19. Tide's on the way back in at the moment. High water's 5:15. Sunset 9:30. Low water 24 minutes to midnight. Sunrise 5:20. And high water 6 minutes later at 5:26.
Visit the Manx Glass and Glazing website and see a range of products from windows to doors, mirrors to splashbacks. manxglass.com.
Waltons have hundreds of TVs in stock ready to go. And we watch online and UK prices so you don't have to. From the latest Samsung QLEDs to LG OLEDs. Visit Waltons and see for yourself.
We have it all at Manx Mobility in Onken. Daily living aids, wide-fitting shoes, rise recliners, beds and scooters. See the new lithium battery scooter range. Light enough to lift, go travel and go further. Manx Mobility at the top of Summer Hill, making life easier.
Carpetland, the carpet specialist with the island's best value carpets in stock. Often fitted within a week. Furnitureland for three-piece suites, dining and living room furniture. And a selection of amazing beds. Carpetland and Furnitureland. West Street, Ramsey.
The exclusive Karcher store is open with thousands of products, accessories and parts in stock. For Karcher sales and service, Hersham Electrical, Shipyard Industrial Estate, Ramsey.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mai, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. The Chief Minister is here, Aaron Michael, MHK, Alfred Cannan. So if you want to get in touch, then by all means, text, email, call and WhatsApp. Well, one of Mr. Cannan's manifesto commitments was to demonstrate a collegiate and listening approach to policy formation and problem solving, working with colleagues across government, delivering results for the Isle of Man. Mr. Cannan's vision, one government building a secure, vibrant and sustainable future for our island nation. Faster Mike, good afternoon, Chief Minister.
Good afternoon, Andy.
It's fair to be said, we are in some choppy waters at the moment. The winds are blowing at the moment. How do you see the state of the nation at the moment?
Well, I think we're making progress in very, very difficult and challenging economic times particularly, which is causing a significant amount of pressure on a number of sectors and indeed on individuals and on government itself. And those impacts really are proving incredibly challenging. I think also, moving forward in a number of other areas is going to be challenging and certainly has been challenging. And we are dealing with some major issues as a government, from renewable energy, island infrastructure, and of course putting our economy onto a secure and sustainable footing. And you're doing that in that sort of global economic environment where conditions are changing, have changed substantially. And so we are facing a number of headwinds, but I think that actually we're making progress. We have the lowest numbers of lowest unemployment figures, record lows there. There are still some very positive indicators from within our mainstream businesses in financial services and indeed in the digital performance. We're still waiting to get the figures in terms of how things shaped up from a TT and local economy perspective, but I know that the Department for Enterprise are doing work there. We've got progress now with in terms of our plans for renewable energy. I know there will be some controversy around that, but we've got to make some progress because we have to secure the island's energy supply by 2030. And of course, we've got our climate change commitments. And of course, we've got to move forward on things like housing and, as I say, operational infrastructure, some of which has been impacted by COVID, as we've seen down at the airport. And we need to increase resilience, for example, there. And we also need to move forward in very difficult financial position in terms of our healthcare and healthcare provision as well.
Some of the issues regarding net zero commitments and sustainable future and renewables, will be that will come under. I mean, those deadlines will come under the next administration. So at the moment, you're planning for the next administration. You may be doing unpopular things that would, if you like, to be your detriment politically. But the next administration will pick up the profits for that. They'll pick up the good bits.
Well, I think so. We take the energy side. I mean, I think we are planning for the next 7-8 years. Of course we are, and we're having to. You know, this is complex infrastructure. It needs a lot of thought process behind it. But we're also pushing forward from this administration's perspective. It was this council of ministers that really determined that 20 megawatts of supply must be provided on island by 2026. And that goes towards helping secure our energy provision, securing our electricity, but also helping our economy as well, because a lot of businesses now are measuring themselves in terms of what is available to them for green energy and what contribution they are making towards climate change. So we are tackling some of the very, very difficult, complex issues in such a way that some of them will be actually dealt with within the lifetime of this administration. And of course, we are looking in terms of those bigger issues that were set out, more sustainable island, the population targets, the number of job targets. Of course, they're longer term targets. And of course, another administration may decide to take a different view. But we have set out our commitments and translated those into clear targets for us. And that's 1,000 new homes, 1,800 new jobs. The 20 megawatts of renewable energy, the achievements in terms of trying to recorrect the financial position, £75 million more of income through to government, and of course a position that's been set out recently by the Treasury Minister to try and get rid of the structural deficit that we have over the next 3.5 years or so now.
I got a note in from Viv. It came in the back end of last week, and Viv just said, could you ask the Chief Minister, have we heard the last of the Rosalind Ranson affair, and how much is it going to cost us in the end?
Well, that's a pertinent question. I mean, I think that affair, if you like, if that's the right word for it, or the case, the Employment Tribunal continues to rumble on. I'm aware of, obviously, we've got some issues, some journalistic issues, or some current issues being put forward in terms of how that is being managed and how that is being investigated. But I think the broader issues around that have been tackled by this government. We set out a clear plan to ensure that type of case, we try to avoid it in the future. You never say never, but we have set out in terms of looking at the structure at the top, the chief executive role, the chief officer role, looking at a review of Office of Human Resources, looking at improving the way we communicate across the workforce. So yes, we have sought to resolve that. The bigger issues are around that in terms of what actually happened, what medical advice was given, what got through to council of ministers. That is all being dealt with in the COVID inquiry that we've set out, and we've set that in play with Kate Brunner, KC. She is managing that independently of government. She's collating huge amounts of information, and ultimately she will be in a position to make some judgments around that, but also all the information that's being collated will inevitably become public information. People will be able to see what exactly went on during that period. So it depends what perspective you're looking at that particular issue from in order for me to sort of provide one of two answers.
Viv just mentioned the fact that we're going to pour an awful lot of public money into finding out what happened in something in the past. And obviously nobody could have foreseen what happened. The COVID pandemic was a complete one-off as far as everybody was concerned. Viv's bothered about throwing good money after bad and raking up the ashes of something that happened in the past when we got far bigger problems in the future. Will we learn anything from the Rosalind Ranson Tribunal, that situation?
Well, I hope so, because these are major issues. I think actually my view is the pandemic was well managed on the island, and we escaped relatively lightly to some of the chaos that ensued in neighbouring democracies and countries, and therefore, my view is actually, I hope that some of the reflections of the report will be positive. Nevertheless, it's true to say that there was some loss of life. It's probably true to say there are areas where we need to prepare for in the future. We need to get ourselves ready in case we see another pandemic. And the benefit, really, I think the plus side of having a report done like this and spending that sort of public money is that we are prepared for the future and that we don't take these things lightly, because, as many of us will be aware, there was no real, in my view, preparation from a government perspective to manage this type of event. So there should be benefits. It is appropriate that we look back, and of course there were people who were very upset at the way that government managed some of the process that was put in place under the emergency powers. All right,
Dave, Faster Mike, good afternoon. Dave, you're live with the Chief Minister.
Good afternoon, Andy. Chief Minister, the business sector last week highlighted there was an issue with the old senior management of the DOI that were progressing policies that are outdated and not suitable to meet modern requirements. In addition, for the last decade, senior managers of other departments that were dumped into shared services also indicated the issues with top senior management. And clearly you've had consultants have a look at it. And again, they've pointed out senior management are the problem. But the real issue is that many of the senior management in place today were part of the old regime, and new blood that has been introduced is carrying on down the same route, and this route is not meeting the needs of the island. So are you going to deal with the issue or just undertake the knee-jerk reaction to reduce the size of the department, thus spreading this cancerous type management practices to other departments?
Well, yes, Dave. I think the critical juncture that we're at is that clearly these are not just sole decisions of mine, but either we are now going to take some reform action with the DOI, and to be fair to the officers, I think foolishness is just repeating the same mistake over and over and over again. And I think there have been a number of issues that have come about over the last 15 or so years with the Department for Infrastructure. It's a significant department. It's got many, many different facets to it. Everything from local government, waste management, airports, trams and trains, roads, and many, many other areas as well. And I think it's become increasingly obvious to me, and I suspect to many other people, that there is potentially a lack of purpose with this now, and that there is a case for reform. My intention is to put that now and agree what case there is with the Council of Ministers, and I hope that at some point in the summer we'll be in a position to carry out an initial consultation, because I think it's absolutely vital that we give actually the senior managers and the staff in this very disparate department doing very specialist functions every chance of success for the future. And I think that there is a case at the moment to make changes, and for some of those changes at least to happen quickly, so that we do put some purpose back into this, and that we can all be confident that we have a department that is focused and clear about its strategic purpose within the delivery of public services.
Okay, Dave?
But while they were delivering those public services, the department has actually harmed an awful lot of staff members, an awful lot of senior staff members with the qualifications and experience just couldn't put up with it. It was like going back 20 years. That's the bit you need to get hold of with the DOI.
Okay. What sort of vision do you have for the future of the DOI, Chief Minister?
Well, I think that highlighting some of those points, bringing a greater sense of purpose, being clear about what its core delivery functions are, and actually looking at where we have other functions within the DOI that don't necessarily sit comfortably with delivering a focused, well-governed, streamlined, purposeful department. So that is where we need to focus our efforts now. I think my intention is to work quickly and effectively with political colleagues to agree a pathway forward. Even if there's not total agreement in some of these reforms, we can at least, I hope, agree that structurally there is a case for reform, and that we can be clear actually about what those pathways are and when they are actually going to happen. Now, some of it is already is indicatively set out. We are looking at the airport, the function in the airport. There is this shadow board being created around that. I need to put a bit more impetus behind that and also some clarity, because it's not clear whether that is going to be arm's length in terms of a sort of limited company or whether or not that is going to be a statutory board. We're looking very carefully at the heritage railways. As we know, there may well be better options to protect and develop heritage railways into the future. And there are a number of other areas that could carry out similar direction and purpose in order to help shape a department that is purposeful and everybody is clear about what is actually setting out to deliver.
Okay. All right, Dave, thanks for calling.
Well, thank you.
All right, let's go to John with us now. Hi, John.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, you're live with the Chief Minister.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Cannan. Good afternoon, Andy, and thank you for letting me come on. I've just got a couple of points that I want to put across, really, regarding Skird and Erie wind farm proposal, just for the benefit of the people to understand where we're at the moment. So the Manx government in itself do not own our beautiful island. We do. They're merely elected as custodians. And our people need to unite to question the decision-making process, as can be shown by a few points that I've got. So one thing that I have is, obviously, our MHKs were provided with a presentation only on the 13th of July, and all local property owners and tenants of the MUA found out about this project via media on the 18th of July. The final site selection timeframe is very tight. Our MHKs advised us that would be within the next 8 weeks, so now we're looking at 6 to 7. And my question being, firstly, how can this happen when it appears there's no site survey data currently available? So that selection process went through no biodiversity study for Skird or Erie Staying. How did the area become a finalist? A Freedom of Information has confirmed that no survey data or even generic report data is available yet. Then I've got a couple of other points I want to raise. We've got local politicians that are championing this on social media without any fact. I've submitted some Freedom of Information requests to obtain answers for the general public. An understanding of the true cost of this project on biodiversity, roads, concrete, metal, storage, lubricants, cleaning, heat, maintenance, a myriad of questions that we would obviously need to answer. We've got disingenuous reporting on MUA site. For example, they quote that the RSPB have no impact on raptors. The Isle of Man itself is fortunate to have a red-listed species that's Schedule 1 protected from willful disturbance. Then we come to the economics of it. The MUA have existing debt and appearing to have an inability to repay. How successful is our hydroelectric plant? Freedom of Information submitted for that. Tourism business impact. We ourselves have a tourism business aside from our day-to-day office business. The visitor economy strategy pointed out what they wanted to do for the Isle of Man. And there's a very interesting section to that, re-sustainability and what the Isle of Man wants to look like.
Okay, all right. Well, let's dive into those then, Chief Minister.
John, thank you very much for calling in. Look, I understand. I'm assuming that you're potentially close to one of these potential sites, John. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so that's absolutely fine. Listen, I mean, I think that's the purpose of having proper planning applications, planning inquiries, people to put in objections is really the way that you will be able to express all these concerns that you have. To be fair to the Manx Utilities Authority, and I have to take responsibility for this, a Council of Ministers decision was to get 20 megawatts of renewable energy supply on the island by 2026 to help us on our way towards achieving as much as we can renewable energy on the Isle of Man. And of course, alongside that, we've got the cable that we need to get into the UK, and there are other individuals and companies with ideas about renewable energy for the future. But the Council of Ministers has pushed this and said the government must achieve this, and the MUA have responded to that and come out with their, I understand it, the 2 sites that they are currently considering. And John, you know, at a certain point there will have to be proper planning procedures and processes where all your concerns are put to inspector, and the inspector will have to make then the relevant decisions. And then that's currently, as the position stands at the moment.
John?
So appreciate I'm immediately affected, but I think this is something that affects the entire Manx people, and it's something that we need to unite on. I'm still bemused how we can get to a finalist position from what we hear were 30 possible solutions without any survey data. And more concerning to that is that we're going to make this final decision within the next, obviously now we're at 6 to 7 weeks. We could have a loss of amenity, a loss of biodiversity, and possibly even a loss of the ability to create efficient energy generation.
Okay. Although John, that's the Manx Utilities Authority will then have to put in a planning application, and then all these points will need to be factored in and considered, and they will have to justify their decision, and that will have to all be taken into consideration. I think from the broader political perspective, and I know wind farms are controversial, but putting it onshore appears to be the most cost-effective solution for us, and also from a broader perspective, we need to get the energy security onto the island, and it's pretty clear in the current direction of travel that focusing on renewing gas, for example, or hydrocarbons in terms of the direct supply to the island is not a route that is going to give us a sort of sustainable economic future, and therefore this is a step forward. And my view is the Council of Ministers were right to make this call. I know it's difficult. I know that there will be lots of concerns, but we have to make sure that those are properly addressed, and the right forum for that is at a planning inquiry.
Okay, all right, John, thanks for calling today.
Sorry, could I just one more tiny question?
Very briefly, if you would.
Yeah, we were advised that there may be, in the national interest, an ability to bypass the planning process. And if that's the case, we as the Manx people don't have a voice. We could devastate wild and endangered species because humans ourselves have failed to save the planet.
So I am aware that there is a thing called a National Policy Directive. I don't think it's actually been used before. And what I can say is that there is no intention for any way or decision to somehow try and override this in terms of its process. I think there will clearly be a concern from a government perspective if such a decision was not given approval and was overturned. I think there would be then a need for a broader national discussion, a council discussion, a political discussion, a public discussion about what happens next. So we have to make progress. I think from a political perspective, this has been about saying we must deliver 20 megawatts on island. That will force the pace of change, but also, most importantly, start to take us towards energy security into the future. And we need to make sure and give everybody a proper say in that. But obviously, at the end of the day, once everybody's had their say, then a decision will need to be taken.
Okay, all right, John, thanks for that point today. The two sites, by the way, there are two sites having been identified to potentially supply a 20 megawatt wind farm, Sulby and Druidale in the north, Iristane and Scards in the south of the Isle of Man. We've had lots of messages in today also questioning a green mandate, Chief Minister. It's fair to say, and I remember going around all of the constituencies doing debates beforehand, I think out of all the candidates, there was only one candidate who didn't evince a green mandate and didn't espouse the fact that we had to, face the future in a green way and in a sustainable way. Everybody, all candidates were talking about this green future. So, I mean, every voter knew the fact that politicians were committed to this future, and we are a little more than 2 years away from 2026. I mean, in terms of politics, it's the blink of an eye. In 2 years, come this December, we'll have to have wind farms up. Am I right?
Well, the objective is 2026, so that's not the month in 2026. Actually, you could have it up by December 2026. I mean, we're 2023, 3.5 years potentially away from that, actually happening. My hope is that it will be in 3 years' time, and that we will have demonstrated to the community and to the business that renewable energy is on island, that it can work, that it is functional, and that it is helping us contribute towards the actions that we've set out we must achieve as a small nation to contribute towards the climate change crisis that is clearly enveloping us. But I think it goes back to my original point about this is less about climate change activism and more about climate change pragmatism. And within being pragmatic about things, it's clear that the world is changing its view on how energy is supplied. We are seeing so many different initiatives now, from solar farms in the Middle East to wind turbines being placed offshore to wind turbines onshore to people also exploring in the early stages of understanding how, for example, hydrogen might play a role. So there's a huge amount of investment and change and challenge happening. We're just simply looking to make progress so that we can start to put in place the platform and demonstrate, I think, as an island, not only on international responsibilities, but the practicalities of this, that we have future energy supply and that future energy supply can come from clean sources and will contribute towards our future electricity and energy.
Okay, David on 425 texted in and just says, why does the government not want to discuss geothermal on the Isle of Man? If we can do geothermal, why don't we at least look at it?
And again, I don't think there's anything off the table in terms of options. I don't know enough about geothermal in terms of its ability to provide significant amounts of electricity, or to meet the electricity needs of the island. And to a certain extent, from a council of ministers perspective, we have to make big picture decisions of which there's clear evidence. I don't think anything's off the table. And I would say to, was it David
David,
and
yes.
Anybody else, if they have views on this, then really they should be trying to make those clear too. We have a climate change board, we have a chairman, and I would be looking to feed those views through, because future energy requirements, I'm sure, will start to shape and change and evolve as technology and understanding grows.
Let's. We're going to take a break shortly, but we've got lots and lots and lots of questions coming in, so we'll try and rattle through some of them. We're obviously talking about big picture items today, but lots of people are concerned about individual items, and we'll try and get to a couple of those.
When you need a fitting memorial or headstone for a loved one, contact Manx Memorials in Peel. This long-standing family-run Manx company offer a wide range of granite and marble headstones and memorials, along with an island-wide inscription and renovation service. Manx Memorial's skilled professionals will take the time to help you choose a suitable memorial, and we're proud to say we'll beat other local quotes. Call 843-861 or email matthew@manxmemorials.co.uk.
For powerboat training to become more confident and knowledgeable in our waters, or how to use a boat safely and gain an RYA qualification, contact Chris at Chell Marine on 22 1000 or visit chellmarine.co.uk.
Whatever your assets, you want to ensure that they're protected and passed on to the right people in the way you want them to be. Simcox Advocates provide effective solutions when dealing with wills, trusts, powers of attorney, property and foundations. Simcox private client team has a reputation for excellence, rated top tier by independent law directory The Legal 500. Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com.
Isle of Man Creamery are proud exhibitors at our agricultural shows with exclusive show offers. So come along and say hello, taste some samples, and take home a piece of Isle of Man Creamery. We're in the DEFA Producers Marquee.
I'm Mike Buttle. Tonight, as part of Manx Radio's Island Life series, I'll finish my look at the Isle of Man Steam Railway by remembering the Manx Northern route to Ramsey. It's been well over 50 years since the last train clattered over the impressive viaduct at Glenwillan, but I've found a few people to share some lovely memories of the days when steam was king.
And they belted out through the door with hats and coats and things flying everywhere, ran flat out down the road all the way from the school to the railway station. They had 5 to 6 minutes to get from the Ramsey Grammar School to the train station.
That's tonight at 6 and available as a podcast afterwards at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Chief Minister Alfred Cannan is on today. Just there was a question earlier on about how much the Rosalind Ranson tribunal would cost. Here's one just saying, could you ask the Chief Minister, how much is the Liverpool sea terminal going to cost in the end?
Well, we're already definitely at £75 million, and as you know and you can see from the debate that took place, that's likely to be exceeded now in the coming weeks. Liverpool has turned into a deeply complex engineering project, and where we're at now is that we need to get this finished, completed, and then we need to go back and have the relevant reviews and the relevant inquests into how this project has soaked up so much public money, because it's pretty clear that with hindsight nobody would have embarked on this project had they known that it was going to go from something estimated at around 25 odd million pounds up to 90 million pounds, even accepting that COVID has happened, that's increased cost. Even accepting inflation has happened, and that's increased cost. There's been so many difficult technical engineering problems to overcome. Look, we need to get it finished now. The plan is to get that finished now, in essence, by the autumn, and then to get various snagging and trials undertaken with landing stages, etc., and to get it open in the summer.
Got a message, and this is John W. who just said, you were Treasury Minister when the Liverpool passenger terminal was agreed. Did you know this car crash was happening? I mean, why weren't any negotiating? Why weren't there assurances put in place that we've got a full repairing lease, it seems, whereas there was no cap on it at the time. You were Treasury Minister. Did you know all this was happening?
Well, there have been a number of stages in this project where we've been asked for more funding, and invariably those stages have meant that the Council of Ministers has had to get involved, and that we've had to determine whether or not we should continue with the project. And each time that's come along, we've been in a position where I think I can recall from memory that we were asked when the project reached £30 million, whether we continue to invest or not, and each time you get a projection of what is needed and what's going to happen, and clearly it's continued to spiral. I think again we will have to look back. It's right that you take in a proper review of this. There will have to be both Public Accounts Committee, I know, looking at this, but there will have to be a government-led review of what has gone on, because there are a number of concerns I'm sure that the public will naturally have, and of course naturally concerns that the Council of Ministers had, and it's not something.
I'm guessing the mood in Treasury wasn't terribly good at that time when you were facing these requests for more and more money on Liverpool.
Well, never is, and you're faced with difficult decisions, and you're effectively faced with decisions that mean effectively, do you stop or do you continue to invest?
So there was a chance that we could have aborted the project in Liverpool.
I suspect, and I think it's only fair that we do a proper review, but I suspect from my memory there are probably at least two opportunities that were said actively, or discussions that took place around, do we carry on with this particular project? But I think it's also important, Andy, and this goes to COVID and everything else, that you are presented with the full facts rather than just piecemeal bits and pieces of evidence. And that's why I think it's actually important that we eventually hear from the Public Accounts Committee, and I think it's important as well that government will naturally want to update the public in terms of its personal review or undertaking in terms of assessment as to whether things could have been prevented at an earlier stage, and indeed whether there is any fault attributable and where that blame should lie.
You are, at the moment, interim DOI Minister. When would you envisage somebody taking the portfolio?
I think my plan is to discuss with the Council of Ministers and to understand what sort of reform would be acceptable, and to carry out an initial consultation. I think once that pathway is clear and has been agreed, then one would hope we'd be in a position to put in place the Minister on the basis that they were signing up to deliver what Council had outlined and required to be to happen in terms of refocusing the department.
Okay, Dewan, hi, you're live with the Chief Minister.
Afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, Alf.
Good afternoon, Dewan.
Difficult times for you, I'm sure. Wouldn't like to be in your boat. A bit concerned on the, just before I get onto my questions, quickly on what you said before. You said you didn't know much about or didn't know enough about geothermal, but you seem to be quite, or this government seems to be quite hell-bent on going ahead with wind turbines when I keep asking the question about base loads. And it was concerning that you seem to avoid the geothermal thing there. That's just on a point of what someone's brought up there. I was conflicted on what questions to ask today because there is so many. So I'm just going to go with these as quickly as I can. I was down at St Michael's Isle recently, sitting there and watching stuff go over, and I had 3 planes go overhead, jet planes, all in lockstep with each other, virtually alongside each other, spraying very, very long trails which didn't disappear. As you sit and watch them trails go down and disappear into a haze and covers the whole of the sky. So my question is, are we getting sprayed with stuff? If so, what are we getting sprayed with? Because it's obviously not a contrail. That would be my first question. I'm trying to go through as quickly as I can for you. The second one, this is touching on the relaxation of work permits. I spoke with Tim Johnson the other week when he was on the programme about a Nigerian person who came over here on a tourist visa, didn't have enough money for any kind of accommodation of any sorts and was looking for work. A report in the paper, on social media the other week of a Nigerian woman with no money for furniture, looking to furnish a house over here or furnish a flat. And again, and before anyone jumps on me for any kind of racist views, this is just an observation. We have a very, very a large amount of black people who have arrived on the island recently. And again, I'm going to stress it's not racial. I'm just making an observation. My question is on that, what safeguards has the Isle of Man government got in place for people coming here who actually can't afford to be here at the moment, who haven't got any money to be here? And has the government got any kind of agreement in place with certain parts of the world to bring certain people here?
Okay. Yep.
So I'm going to, Dewan, if it's okay, dodge your first question about what is coming out of the back of aircraft engines and whether that is actually in some way permeating or filtering down to us and what potential harms that has. I'm afraid that's probably best directed at a specialist. In terms of work permits, look, I think it is important that we respond to the needs of business. It's certainly not something that one would want to remove permanently. I think there's always been clearly stated that if there was evidence that it was actually having a harmful effect on society, one would bring it in. But it is proving to be a barrier in terms of, or at least a perceived barrier in terms of people coming to the island and applying for jobs. And I think we should work with business in a time where we're really struggling to get the staff in a number of critical areas. We should at least give business that opportunity to prove to us that actually it is helping them, it's helping the economy, and vis-a-vis it's helping society. But it's not something that would ever be totally off a government's agenda. And I think from an immigration perspective, we do need to work properly to ensure that the island is protected and doesn't suffer any negative effects resulting from adverse impacts from allowing too many people to come into the island. But on the other hand, I think there are a number of protections in place anyway. Naturally, we don't allow people just to turn up on the island and access the benefits system. They've got to have been resident here for a certain number of years. And also the protection in terms of evaluation. They've still got to go through a visa process if they are coming from an international place or country, and that visa process will naturally take place via the United Kingdom. So there are protections in place, and it is something that we need to carefully evaluate, but we also need to move forward in at a time where business needs, well, it's not just the business, but also the public sector needs to be as open as possible in terms of meeting the needs from an employment perspective, and we know the impact that we've seen post Brexit and indeed post COVID in terms of the availability of those staff.
Okay, all right, Juan, thanks. If you got any videos or any planes that are spraying anything, then Juan, then by all means send them in. I'll be interested to see those.
There's plenty. Just before you cut me off, Andy, my main point was on the sex education bill. Obviously, we're going to have to leave that to another time.
Okay.
I do have points on that, Alf, which I wanted to discuss with you, just so as we know. And there was a lot of people that was interested in hearing it today, so just so as you know. Okay, thank you.
All right, good to hear from you. Thanks, Juan. I also want to, when we're talking about immigration, Chief Minister, there's been a lot on social media, and there have been photos of people begging on Strand Street, of us attracting beggars on Strand Street. Now, this has never happened, not since the tramp who used to be here, 40-odd years ago, but we've never had beggars on the Isle of Man before. There have been notices of people. Are you aware of this?
I'll hold my hands up and say that I'm not, but I'm obviously taking this at face value.
Well, there is some stuff, and by all means, I mean, there's stuff on social media that said there were people begging on Strand Street. These were people who professed not to speak English, but had English signs saying homeless and hungry. But there were people. So anyway, we'll park that there. And if anybody's got any more information on potential beggars on the Isle of Man, and obviously we live in an international world. We do accept people from all over the world on the Isle of Man. But you reckon in terms of that the relaxing work permits won't leave us open to anything?
No, I mean, and I think we should give business that opportunity. What I'm saying is that it doesn't really materially impact in terms of the bigger immigration issue. I mean, people can come to the island anyway. And at the moment, we don't really have many controls per se, other than refusing them access to the benefits system per se. In terms of once they've got into the United Kingdom, if they choose to come and visit the Isle of Man, they can come and visit the Isle of Man. And if a professional group of individuals came across, and we know these things happen in the UK in some cities where they are sort of professionally, if you like, begging, and it's actually part of more organised criminal gangs, then we will need to look at it. So I think one needs to be careful to analyse this stuff and to understand what is actually happening. And I think often things get presented, and I understand immediately, of course, there's going to be a great deal of concern, but we also need to be careful that we're not jumping to conclusions. And but listen, I mean, I think that's something that I need to investigate more specifically.
Okay, I've got lots of correspondence in from the motorhome fraternity, and this is the DOI's proposed consultation regarding outlawing parking of large vehicles on residential areas overnight. The motorhome people just want to know whether the DOI has got it in for motorhome owners and their ability to park.
I don't think that is the case. I think that the Department of Infrastructure is dealing with quite a controversial area where they do receive a number of complaints, where there are a number of local residents who actually get very frustrated by this issue. Listen, I understand it's sensitive. I understand actually that a lot of people now have motorhomes, or certainly a growing percentage, and we do need to handle it sensitively. We'll be looking carefully at that and trying to make sure that any legislation that comes forward is applied appropriately. But I have had a bit of correspondence on that, and I will just be looking at that issue over the coming days.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. She said, just one of many people who just said, look, the vast majority of motorhome owners are responsible. They pay road tax, they pay insurance, they're law-abiding, they meet friends, they cause no trouble. She said, we never park in front of people's home or businesses, we never leave rubbish, we never empty our waste, and in the winter months we park regularly on Ramsey Prom or in Peel on the far side of the marina. We eat in restaurants, we shop in local shops, and we drink in the pubs as well, hopefully not while you're driving the motorhome as well. So Margaret, thanks for those points in today. Chief Minister, regarding the policy to grow the Isle of Man's population to 100,000, to get 15,000 extra people, are we along the line to that? Where are we in that timetable?
I think the core purpose behind that actually, or the foundation to that, was to create the 5,000 new jobs that we felt were needed to grow the population to a more sustainable level, which meant more spending in the local economy, and meant that actually from a cost perspective, some of our services were more effective and efficient, because we do tend to overbuild a lot on the island. And for example, some of our sewerage facilities, for example, can handle more people. Our electricity supply can handle more homes and more people. And so actually but fundamentally it is about the new jobs, because it's not going to be successful if we just simply increase the population without any focus. And in terms of our administration, that's an ambition for 1,800 new jobs. Right. And the best information that I have, and that I'd already given to the House of Keys, was that we are making progress. There are more people registered for employment and paying taxation, and that I hope that we will reach this target by the end of this administration. And of course it does bring other benefits as well in terms of increasing economic activity. And I think one has to remember that we are in the business of ensuring our residents do have jobs to go to, that our children and young people do have opportunities to develop their skills and to stay on the island. And I don't want to get to a position in the future where actually people are having to leave the island to search for work. So there are economic benefits to setting out this plan. It is something that we can cope with. I think I recognise some aspects of it are controversial, but if we can improve particularly our town centres, if we can improve our brownfield sites, it's going to be a more attractive place to live for younger people. And vis-a-vis, we're going to get more benefits in terms of the diversity of economic opportunity. And we are going to ensure that the island does present itself as this vibrant place, both in which to live, but also for somewhere to visit as well. So there are a lot of benefits to this.
OK, back with the Chief Minister, Alfred Cannan, in a moment.
Once again, the Isle of Man Farmers Markets will be at the Southern Agricultural Show, Orisdale. There'll be a wide selection of fresh local produce available direct from the producers. Look for us near the entrance gate.
Crossroads, Isle of Man, putting carers first.
Crossroads have been providing services to local carers and people with care needs for over 30 years. As the leading provider of support for carers on the island, our services are all about improving the lives of carers and giving them a break from caring. Visit crossroadsiom.org for more information.
Crossroads, Isle of Man, putting carers first.
Welcome to the Miller Chaps of Ramsey Summer Sale, where you'll find fabulous reductions throughout the store. From beds and flooring to sofas, cane furniture and accessories, rugs, pictures, mirrors and even wallpapers. Plus, the friendly Miller Chaps team are here as always with a warm welcome and expert help and advice when needed. Don't miss the Miller Chaps of Ramsey Summer Sale, now on.
Creating a home where you'll love to be. Miller Chaps of Ramsey.
Experience a true celebration of island life, where farming comes first at the 2023 Southern Agricultural Show. With 2 full days of local entertainment, livestock exhibits, local traders and more. With a new showground layout and new demo area including live farm machinery displays. And we're right on the bus route, no need to drive. The Southern Agricultural Show, 29th and 30th July, Orisdale Farm, Ballasella. Kids go free. It's a show not to be missed. Supported by Holmes & Davidson Opticians and your nation station Manx Radio, the official media partner of the Southern Agricultural Show.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And the Chief Minister's here at 8 minutes before 1. I just want to mention regarding the beggars I was mentioning earlier on. Apparently they were removed by police on Sunday, and that is subject to a court process. So Chief Minister, you were talking about people leaving the Isle of Man for work, and I just want to bring one thing up finally. We've talked about broad brush things, but this is a personal matter. It's one of your constituents, a lady called Denise, regarding her son Cian, who applied for a City and Guilds Level 1 in site carpentry, a 3-year course at UCIOM, attended the meetings. They said he could have a place if he then got an apprenticeship. He went to David Roberts Joinery in Ramsey and got a place as an apprentice there. When the course entry date came up, he applied online. Within minutes of the entry's opening, he was told if he got the apprenticeship, he would get the place, got the apprenticeship, got a place confirmed, and later that afternoon got an email saying that his application was unsuccessful. This is a boy from the north who wanted to become a joiner, a carpenter. He loves working in that particular area, and he's a very keen cyclist as well, performs as a cyclist. Last year, UCIOM took in 3 cohorts. Now they're only taking in 1 cohort. Now, you may not be able to comment on this, but the broad principle of young kids on the Isle of Man wanting to work in the Isle of Man, not everybody wants to work in the finance sector. He wanted to get an apprenticeship and work in a practical nature. And a barrier has now been put in front of him where he could consider leaving the Isle of Man.
Yes, so I am aware of this particular case. It is one of my constituents. I'm obviously incredibly disappointed that the young man in question has not now been allocated his place on this course. And I am trying to work with the Education Minister to understand what can be done, because it is disappointing, and clearly, we need to make sure that we have in place the right opportunities for everybody to receive their training on island, and if that can't be done for whatever reason, for cost or efficiency purposes, that they do have the proper access to whatever course and materials or as appropriate to ensure that we can continue to develop people appropriately. So, look, I'm looking at that, Andy, and I, like everybody else who would be listening to that, I am disappointed that the young man in question thought he was on a course and then found out he wasn't.
And Chief Minister, we as you said at the start of the programme, we are in challenging times at the moment. That's fair. It's fair to say. I just wonder, as we're now in crikey, is it the 3rd year of your
end of the 2nd year? Third year will start in October.
Nearly that. So, are you content? Are you happy with the way things are going at the moment? Can you see the way forward?
I can see the way forward, albeit I recognise that it is incredibly difficult. We are in a period, I think, of significant change and transition, of significant impacts as a result of what's been happening in over the last decade or so, and as a result of what's happening around us, whether that's the war in the Ukraine, the impacts of inflation, people's cost of living impacts, but also the need as a society to move forward. My objective, the Council of Ministers' objective, is to take the island forward. And you know that it is never easy doing that, because quite rightly, not everybody will share the view that it has been taken in the right direction. Nevertheless, we've set out our high-level objectives. I know and I can see and I can evidence that we are moving towards delivering on those objectives. And we need, as a society, to accept that if we are going to secure our futures, with all the pressures that are facing us, whether that's energy pressures, economic pressures, inflation pressures, infrastructure pressures, that we have to make progress and we have to overcome. And I am confident that we are making that progress, and whilst acknowledging alongside it, of course, that it is at times difficult politically to do so.
Appreciate your time today, Chief Minister. Thanks for being with us. Would you come back before Christmas?
Absolutely. I'll be delighted to see you before Christmas.
Good to hear from you. Thanks. Chief Minister Alfred Cannan. You can hear that programme again as a podcast at manxradio.com. We're back with an open line tomorrow, and thanks to Howie Kane on the phones today.
WINT.
Excited about starting your new business but feel daunted by accounts, tax and VAT? Then talk to Nicola Bowker & Co. before you do anything else. From expert advice to getting a helping hand, Nicola Bowker & Co. can help and guide you. Call 861 271.
When you lose someone you love, it's one of the darkest moments of your life. But the people around us generate light and warmth. So come together with Hospice and let's light the night. On Friday 22nd September, we'll be hosting a truly special event. Decorate your memory lantern in honour of your loved one, then carry it on a short walk through South Barrule Plantation, followed by marshmallows round the fire pit. Visit hospice.org.im/lightthenight for tickets.
You look happy.
I am. I'd worried about what could happen to my family if I die or can't work, so I've arranged a protection policy with financial options.
Sounds great, but it's another monthly cost.
Yes, but cover starts from as little as £5 a month, a small price to pay for financial peace of mind.
You're right.
Call Financial Options on 612 611 or check out financialoptions.co.im.
Chase Financial Services.